A seed potato was placed directly on top of the soil, covered with a thick layer of straw and left alone because the goal was simple and measurable. Find out whether an old surface growing method could actually multiply yield without multiplying labor, and within one season, the difference stopped being theoretical and became visible in the weight of the harvest, which came in at nearly 10 times what the same patch had produced the year before under careful trenching, deep digging, and repeated hilling. I wanted to see the numbers for myself, not just read about them in scattered historical references, so the comparison had to be direct and undeniable. There was no dramatic reveal at the beginning, no mystery to stretch out for effect, just a comparison between two approaches on the same ground under the same sky, using the same seed stock, and the result was so lopsided that it demanded a deeper look into why something so basic could outperform the standard routine so completely. For decades, potatoes had been treated as if they required force to thrive, as if productivity depended on how deeply they were buried and how often soil was dragged up around their stems, and that assumption shaped everything from backyard gardening guides to large-scale farming manuals, yet scattered references in early 20th century agricultural records described a different practice entirely, one that appeared in rural parts of Eastern Europe and northern regions where fuel, machinery, and time were scarce, and that practice ignored trenches altogether by placing seed tubers directly on the surface before burying them under layers of organic matter thick enough to block light but loose enough to breathe. When I first read about it, the method sounded almost careless, as though someone had skipped the hard work and hoped for the best, but the numbers recorded in those old reports hinted at yields that were not just comparable, but significantly higher, especially when measured against the labor invested. So the comparison began with two adjacent sections of soil prepared in radically different ways. One dug deeply, rows measured carefully, seed pieces spaced and buried at uniform depth before being hilled repeatedly as the plants grew, and the other left undisturbed except for a light raking to remove existing weeds before whole seed potatoes were laid on top and covered with a thick blanket of straw, leaves, and partially decomposed compost that formed a living mulch several inches deep. I kept everything else consistent on purpose because I did not want excuses to explain away the outcome later. The traditional bed looked orderly and exposed, dark soil visible between rows, while the layered bed resembled a forest floor, uneven and textured with no visible soil at all. And within a few weeks, the contrast in plant behavior became obvious because the mulched plants emerged through the straw with thicker stems and darker leaves, while the trenched plants required careful watering to prevent crusting and compaction after every heavy rain. The explanation for that early vigor was not mystical but biological, since potatoes evolved in loose mountain soils rich in organic debris where air and moisture coexist without suffocation. And by placing the tubers on the surface and surrounding them with carbon-rich material, the environment recreated those ancestral conditions almost perfectly, allowing stolons to form freely in every direction without the mechanical barrier of compacted earth pressing down on them. In the dug bed, tuber formation was largely limited to the zone just beneath the hilled soil, and every time more soil was pulled up around the stems, it effectively capped future growth zones by compressing them. Whereas in the layered system, each additional handful of straw became a new potential layer for tuber expansion, which meant that instead of fighting gravity and density, the plant expanded upward and outward in a space that remained cool, dark, and oxygen-rich. By mid-season, the water requirements told another part of the story, because the exposed soil in the traditional bed heated quickly under direct sun and lost moisture rapidly to evaporation, forcing more frequent irrigation just to maintain baseline growth, while the mulched bed retained moisture so effectively that even during hotter stretches, the soil beneath the straw remained damp and crumbly, with earthworms visible at the surface whenever the mulch was lifted slightly. I remember lifting that straw for the first time and realizing how alive the soil felt compared to the compacted rows beside it. That moisture stability translated directly into reduced stress on the plants, and reduced stress meant more energy directed toward tuber production rather than survival, which became clear when the first exploratory harvest was conducted by gently pulling back the straw instead of digging with a fork, revealing clusters of developing potatoes stacked at multiple levels, clean and undamaged, resting in pockets formed by decomposing organic matter. As the season progressed, it became clear that the method was not simply about avoiding digging, but about creating a dynamic layer of decay that fed the crop slowly and continuously. Because as the straw broke down, it released nutrients in a form that roots could access without the sharp surges associated with synthetic fertilizers, and that steady feeding pattern prevented the excessive leaf growth that often accompanies heavy nitrogen inputs. In the traditional bed, additional fertilizer had been applied to compensate for nutrient loss through leaching and oxidation. Yet that produced taller foliage without a proportional increase in tuber size, reinforcing the idea that visible growth does not always equal productive growth. In contrast, the layered bed maintained balanced foliage while quietly stacking potatoes beneath the mulch, unseen until harvest. Harvest itself was the moment that erased any lingering doubt, since instead of slicing through soil and occasionally spearing tubers by accident, the process involved rolling back layers of straw and lifting potatoes by hand, many of them resting above the original soil line in vertical clusters that would have been impossible in compacted ground. When I weighed the totals side by side, I honestly thought I had miscalculated, yet repeated measurements confirmed that the layered approach had produced nearly 10 times the yield of the previous season's conventional method on the same area, and several times the yield of the adjacent dug bed planted at the same time. What made the result even more striking was the reduction in labor hours, because there had been no repeated hilling, no deep digging, no constant battle against soil crust, and far fewer watering sessions, which meant that the increased yield was not purchased with increased effort, but achieved through a shift in how the plant's natural tendencies were accommodated. The experience reframed the entire concept of what productivity meant in a garden, suggesting that yield is often limited not by genetics or climate, but by the conditions imposed at planting, and that when those conditions align with the plant's evolutionary preferences, output expands almost automatically. Digging deeper into historical references after witnessing the results revealed that this surface layering method had once been common knowledge in certain regions before industrial agriculture standardized trench planting as the norm, largely because machinery favored exposed soil and uniform depth. And once those standards were formalized in educational materials, alternative practices gradually disappeared from mainstream instruction without being conclusively disproven. The rediscovery of the technique did not require secrecy or rare materials, only the willingness to test a neglected idea under controlled comparison, and the outcome suggested that simplicity had been undervalued in favor of procedures that looked disciplined but often constrained biological potential. Even more surprising was the condition of the soil after harvest, because the mulched section retained a loose, friable structure rich with fungal threads and worm castings, while the dug bed showed signs of compaction where repeated foot traffic and hilling had compressed the ground, creating a subtle but measurable difference in how easily a hand could sink into each plot. That improvement in soil structure hinted that the tenfold yield increase might not be a one-season anomaly, but the beginning of a compounding effect, since healthier soil tends to support stronger crops in subsequent cycles without escalating inputs. As the final tally was recorded and compared with previous years, the conclusion felt less like a discovery and more like a correction, of course, because nothing about the method was high-tech or modern, yet its effectiveness challenged assumptions that had gone unquestioned for generations. I started this trial out of curiosity, but it ended with a complete shift in how I look at growing food. The experiment had begun as a simple comparison, but it opened the door to exploring a parallel strategy that addressed a different limitation entirely, one rooted not in soil quality, but in available space. The surface layered bed proved that potatoes respond dramatically to loose, covered conditions, but another question lingered throughout the season about what would happen if those same principles were applied above ground in containers where soil structure could be controlled from the start, especially in spaces where traditional rows were impossible, such as patios, courtyards, or narrow strips of sun along a wall. Historical accounts described villagers growing potatoes in sacks and wooden boxes when land was scarce, stacking soil gradually as stems elongated, and although that sounded like a workaround rather than a primary strategy, the logic aligned perfectly with what the layered bed had already demonstrated. Give the plant depth without compaction and darkness without suffocation, and it will multiply. Large fabric containers were chosen instead of rigid pots because breathability mattered, and each was filled with a light mixture dominated by compost and fibrous organic matter rather than dense garden soil, since heavy mineral soil tends to collapse under its own weight when confined. 4 evenly spaced seed potatoes were set near the bottom layer, covered lightly, and as shoots emerged, more mix was added gradually, mimicking the upward layering that had occurred naturally under straw in the field bed. I followed the same principle as the surface method and resisted the urge to overcomplicate it with extra inputs. The containers warmed faster in spring, encouraging early growth, and because they were elevated slightly off the ground, drainage remained consistent even after heavy rain, eliminating the stagnation that often causes rot. Watering required attention, but not excess because the presence of a thick mulch layer on top reduced evaporation significantly, allowing moisture to remain stable between soakings, and finger checks replaced rigid schedules so that water was applied only when the mix felt dry several inches below the surface. Feeding was minimal, limited to the nutrients already present in compost, and a modest supplement midway through the season if foliage color suggested deficiency, since excessive fertilization can drive leaf growth at the expense of tuber formation. The philosophy remained consistent with the field trial: create balanced conditions and avoid forcing the plant. By midsummer, the container plants exhibited dense foliage comparable to or exceeding that of the layered bed. Yet what mattered was hidden below, and when one container was carefully emptied as a test harvest, potatoes cascaded out in clean clusters that occupied nearly the entire vertical column of soil, demonstrating that controlled depth combined with gradual layering had extended the tuber-producing zone upward far beyond what a single planting depth would allow. I could see clearly that the environment, not the effort, was doing the heavy lifting. The total weight from a single container rivaled what had once required an entire row in the dug garden, reinforcing the earlier lesson that structure and aeration are often more important than square footage. What emerged from combining both experiments was not merely a technique, but a pattern, because whether in open ground under straw or in breathable containers filled with light compost-rich mix, the common denominator was undisturbed structure, consistent moisture, and abundant oxygen around developing tubers. In both cases, digging and compaction had been removed from the equation, and in both cases, yield had surged in response. That pattern suggested that the tenfold increase observed in the field bed was not an isolated fluke, but part of a broader principle about how potatoes allocate energy when their environment remains stable rather than stressed. Another subtle benefit became clear only after the growing season ended, when the soil from the layered bed was examined more closely and compared to untouched sections of the garden, because the mulch had decomposed into a rich, dark layer that blended gradually into the native soil without sharp boundaries, increasing organic content and improving tilth without mechanical mixing. Earthworm populations had multiplied visibly, and water infiltration during autumn rains improved noticeably, indicating that the method had enhanced not just yield but the underlying health of the ground itself. In contrast, the trenched bed required leveling and light remediation to correct compaction before winter cover crops could be sown. The container system delivered a different kind of resilience, since once harvest was complete, the spent mix could be refreshed with additional compost and reused without the disruption associated with digging, effectively creating a portable growing medium that remained structurally intact year after year. For growers with limited land or poor native soil, this portability meant independence from site constraints, echoing the same theme observed in the layered field method, which reduced dependence on heavy tools and synthetic inputs. Reflecting on the full season, it became evident that the phrase 10 times the yield captured attention but only hinted at the deeper shift in understanding, because the increase was not solely about weight per plant, but about weight relative to effort, water, and soil disturbance. Productivity measured purely in pounds can obscure the hidden costs that accompany conventional practices, such as erosion, nutrient leaching, and physical strain, whereas the ancient surface method and its container counterpart reframe success as abundance achieved through alignment rather than force. The implications extend beyond potatoes, touching on how gardening knowledge evolves and sometimes narrows when standardized procedures replace experimentation. Yet this experience demonstrated that revisiting overlooked techniques can reveal efficiencies that modern routines inadvertently suppress. The rediscovered method did not rely on secrecy or rare materials. It relied on straw, compost, breathable containers, and patience, all of which remain widely accessible. What changed was not the availability of resources, but the willingness to question assumptions about how deep something must be buried to grow well. As another planting season approaches, the choice now feels less like an experiment and more like a commitment to a system that proved itself under direct comparison. And the next step will be refining spacing, testing additional varieties, and measuring long-term soil improvements to determine how cumulative the benefits become over multiple years. The expectation is not merely to repeat a single impressive harvest, but to establish a cycle in which each season builds upon the last without escalating inputs. If this account sparked curiosity about what might be possible in a backyard or on a balcony, consider running a side-by-side comparison rather than accepting any claim at face value, because direct measurement removes doubt faster than theory ever can. Share the results, refine the process, and treat the garden as a place of inquiry rather than routine, since that mindset is what allowed an ancient approach to demonstrate its value again in a modern setting. Subscribe to Heritage Harvest, turn on notifications so you do not miss the next video, and share this with someone who still believes productivity only comes from digging deeper and adding more.